Okay, welcome everybody. Take your seats, we'll get going.
I'm just paying attention.
Okay, time to wrap it up and take your seats.
Hello.
Yeah, where's your gavel, We have 4 seats right up in front, and I can assure you Lorraine doesn't bite. Well, my goodness, this feels like the best sort of family reunion that I could imagine. And as a newcomer, I have to say, my feeling is a little bit like, gosh, I'm really glad I married into this family. But before getting on with the show, I'd like to express my thanks to the fellow members of the Heritage Commission, Dave Canada, MJ Werner, Bev Connolly, Nancy Hansen, and a special thanks to Nate Merrill, whose efforts did not stop with roping in his mother. It began with that, but went on from that. And a big thank you to Georgiana Law, who agreed to be on the panel, and to Flossie Wiggin, who once again proved her immense value to the commission by seemingly knowing everybody in town, not only now, but in the past. Flossie came up with the brilliant idea of a photo display, and she was joined by Stella Scammon and Teddy Smith. Many thanks for all of their hard work. Before you leave, if you haven't already, take some time to look at the photos. We're also very grateful to John Hayskamp for agreeing to record the proceedings here tonight. From the very beginning, we planned this to not only be a wonderful family reunion and a way of introducing newcomers to traditions in town, but also we wanted it to have a sort of informal oral history component, and John is an important part of that. Thanks too to Allison Pike and the women of the Ladies Auxiliary, who the very tempting aroma of those homemade cookies, etc., is wafting over the room and helping us set up this evening. I want to say that as much as this evening is about the past, it's not limited to that. It only makes sense that what was done in the past might be possible in the future. Interest in local agriculture from both producers and consumers is growing in this state. Just today I read an interesting article in the Foster's Daily Democrat that UNH is launching a new major in sustainable agriculture and food systems, preparing students for careers in what the university calls New England's diversified agricultural landscape. Tonight we'll explore Stratham's diverse agricultural landscape. Lorraine Merrill very kindly agreed to moderate the proceedings. She's first going to engage with our panelists up here, Doug Scammon, Cameron Sewell, and Georgiana Law. Then we hope to hear from all of you in the audience. We have a microphone to pass around, so when that time comes, I hope you won't feel shy to contribute. So, over to you, Lorraine. Thanks.
Thank you, Becky. This work now? Good evening, everyone. We're just thrilled to see everybody come. There's people are still coming in. Do we have enough chairs?
Maybe not.
I was really thrilled when the commission, the Heritage Commission, started talking about this event this evening, because I love to acquaint the newcomers with how Stratham came to be what it is today. I remember when my family moved here in 1961, forced by the taking of our farm in Littleton, Massachusetts to construct the Interstate Highway 495, and I was just starting 5th grade. I came here. This town was just a real farm town. It was wall-to-wall farms. I mean, it was very much an agrarian community, and if it helps to understand how Stratham looks the way it does, the fact that there's no town center here. And it's been a difficult thing sometimes to see the process of the development of farms. When we came here, there was one new development that had been built on a chicken farm, which was, that's now Crestview. I think that Williams Circle in that area was just under construction. That had been Bob Berry's dairy farm, and so it went. When I came here, there were so many dairy farms in town, I can't count them. I said to John tonight, I think there could have been 20. He said there probably were, because there were certainly 8 shipping milk commercially when John, my husband, joined the family in 1970 and came to town. So it's not that long ago, is it? And this morning, while driving to work, I heard NHPR's The Exchange program, and they're taking a look back because it's been 15 years of the Exchange program on NHPR. And today's show was reminiscing about 1996. Okay, the history, what's happened in 15 years. And there was a lot of talk, both by the guests on the show and people calling in, about the change that has occurred in the 15 years in New Hampshire. And John Clayton was talking about, he said he thought there's been a real change in the attitudes, much more appreciation for the old buildings and the heritage of our state and our communities. And that we now recognize that we need to honor and build on the legacy, the work of the generations who came before us. And he spoke specifically of the mill buildings and other built structures, roads, and so forth. And to me, as a farmer, I think we also must honor and build on what was done before in terms of agriculture and farming. It looks different, but it's very much, I know we are acutely aware of the generations and generations and generations of families who took such good care of the land and the soils that we work today, that they're still so productive and healthy. When I look at Stratham and the history of farming, I highly recommend the book, The Years of the Life of Samuel Lane, 1718 to 1806, A New Hampshire Man and His World, which was written by Gerald Brown. I know there's copies in the library and so forth, but this book is the most readable history, and it really gives you a sense of what life was like in Stratham during this period, what farming in Stratham was like, and as a farmer, things have not changed that much. Yes, the technology has changed, but boy, the weather conditions, the challenges of farming, the droughts, the livestock issues, and the fact that farming has always been a business. Samuel Lane was a very sharp and careful business person. And the role of the family, the importance of every member of the family in a farming operation, their contributions, even back then, the whole rural economy was based on multiple income sources. People might be farming and also have a job or have a value-added kind of business that they were doing. And the women had specialized divisions of labor kinds of work. but all of this work was important, and it all had economic value. And the children, I mean, it tells about when Samuel Lane's youngest children left, how their production of butter and cheese went down because the daughter was no longer there to help. So it really is a very enlightening and interesting book, and you'll find it's so many familiar places, whether it's the church, the center of town, and the different houses and all. It's more alive than people might think. So we have a great history in this town to draw on, and we're going to ask each of our panelists this evening to talk about a bit of their own experience, their families' connections to the history of agriculture in the town. Everyone is going to be different. The diversity of agriculture here has been very rich, and it's all across town. All regions of the town. We had, as I said, dairy farms. We've had important vegetable farms, greenhouse, major, you can see in the pictures, some big greenhouses, poultry, horses, lots and fruit, apples, a lot of fruit. So, Georgiana, you want to start?
Okay. Okay. I live at Frying Pan Lane, on Frying Pan Lanes on the farm. It was built in 1835 by my great-great-grandparents. I live there today. I've lived there, I'm 76 years old, but I've only lived there for 74 years because 2 years before that I lived in my aunt's house, which was just up the street, but I have lived on Frying Pan Lane for 76 years. My grandfather built the house above me in 1902, and then my father and mother moved back down with my great-grandmother, who is living at 45 Frying Pan Lane now. It's been in the family since then. I have 3 grandchildren, that the 7th generation, and hopefully they will continue on with the farm after I'm gone. My grandfather, great-grandfather, and grandfather and father did have a milk business there, and farmed vegetables and hay and so forth, and raised beef cattle and as well as milk. Now I board horses there and trying to keep the farm up for my children and grandchildren. As Lorraine mentioned, farming is pretty much the same. We do have it much easier now in some ways, but you still have the weather that can certainly make it much harder, with the haying especially. I have 2 sons here in town that help me at the present time to run the farm. I remember, of course, when I was born in 1935, Frying Pan Lane was then Middle Road, and in 1975 I petitioned to have it changed back to Frying Pan Lane because I do have the original frying pan that goes with Frying Pan Lane, and there is a frying pan for Frying Pan Lane. And it was, at that time, there were only 4 families on the road, and it was loaned from one family to the other whenever they needed it, for a steak or for a family outing. It is a huge frying pan with a long handle, which I assume they put over the fireplace. And it was handed down. There's quite a story with it, because it was handed from neighbor to neighbor whenever they wanted it. So I thought that the people that thought Frying Pan Lane years ago was not quite ritzy enough and they wanted Middle Road, I thought it should go back to Frying Pan Lane. I remember also Cameron, who by the way is my second cousin, asked me tonight if I remembered when Frying Pan Lane was a dirt road, and I said I certainly do remember, with grass growing up in the middle of it. I used to ride horseback, and I tell my kids now that I remember when grass grew up in the middle of Frying Pan Lane, and they look at me as if I'm losing my mind. But it was a dirt road, and I do not remember Bunker Hill Avenue ever being dirt, but I do frying pan. I also remember when Union Road was dirt, River Road, Depot Road, yes, that's right, Floss. So, Stratham has changed a lot in my lifetime. I do miss the farms that have gone into developments. Hopefully, I can keep mine, and for a while longer anyway, and my children will be able to keep it also, because it has a lot of pleasant memories. I miss the family life that I had as a youngster. That is just not there anymore like it used to be. You always, every Sunday, visited neighbors, relatives, and always had a big family meal on Sundays. And I do remember also that one story that I do want to tell. Annie Scammon, who I think Doug certainly remembers, was a widow who lived on River Road. And my grandfather, John Chase, who lived in the house above me, they both had two driving horses who were pretty nice horses, I guess, and they always loved to compete and talk about the horses they had. And they always went to the church that was down here, just a little ways here down on the left, that now is just a monument for. And they would go to church on Sunday morning, and they, after church, my grandfather was a deaconess of the church, they would race their horses home from church to the end of Frying Pan and River Road. And my father would always say, I never had a hot Sunday meal because I had to spend 2 hours cooling the horse off after my father brought it home, racing home with Annie Scammon. And I don't know if too many here remember Annie Scammon, but she was quite a lady and loved to race her horse. Those are some of the memories that my parents told me, and I think of it today with all the traffic out here. I also miss Doug's father's cattle crossing the road, and used to have to stop and sometimes go after a stray one, and those times were good times as I look back on them, and I do think about it when I see the traffic on Portsmouth Avenue now. But it is progress, I guess, but I hope the few farms that we do have in Stratham we can keep for a while longer.
Thank you, Georgiana. We'll go to Cameron next. We'll save you, Doug and I, for last because we're the newcomers.
Thank you.
Well, I was going to start a little different. Go back to the George Gowan moved to Stratham in 1876 or 1878 to the Gowan Farm, which was located at the corner of Barker Road and High Street on that whole last area. And he would have been my grandmother's father. My grandmother was born in Stratham. And they raised fruit and vegetables and sold them in Portsmouth. They went into Portsmouth every day with a wagon load of produce and sold them in Market Square. And he also had a large greenhouse and an apple evaporator. He was ahead of his time as far as evaporating, dehydrating apples. And apparently he bought many thousands of apples because he had a crew of men and women that peeled the apples and put them on some sort of a elevator rack. But he used the same boiler heating system that heated his greenhouses to heat this evaporator, to evaporate the apples. That farm was apples and produce, and his sons, the Gowan brothers, owned it, and they also owned the farm on Stratham Heights Road, the apple orchard over there. My grandmother married in the early 1900s to Marshall Chase, and they lived on Buckhill Avenue, which would be 114 Buckhill Avenue. And they raised, he had cows and chickens, she had the chickens, and draft horses. My grandmother's household expenses were paid by the egg money that she got from the eggs, and he also sold milk house to house in Exeter. I believe he got a nickel a quart for milk delivered in Exeter, and that bought the farm. And then go on to my folks. My father and mother were married in 1928, and they lived on Stratham Heights Road at the Orchard, which is now Apple Way and Elton Way. And